All right, and welcome back to The Light, powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com. Still here at the Black Men in Media event, sponsored by WHYY. And I'm here with the great filmmaker and documentarian, Bob Lott. Would you please introduce yourself to my listeners and viewers, please?
Well, I've been a producer for 45 years, and I've produced a lot of films and documentaries on African and African American people, history for the most part, trying to educate our people as best we possibly can, particularly our young people, because they need to know who they are and where they came from. So that's who I am.
Could you tell us some of the films that we might see from you?
Well, I've been to Egypt 11 times. I've been to Ghana 4 times. I've been to Paris, Italy. So I did it. The thing that drove me the most was Ghana, hometown Ghana. And I did a documentary called Ghana, The Door of No Return. That film has run 5 awards in 5 different film festivals. It ran on television, the Black News Channel, for 2 years. And that's kind of my #1 film. 2 years ago, I did finish a film of a historian by the name of Dr. Runoko Rashidi. If you don't know him, check him out. Runoko Rashidi. He's the only black man that's ever been to 126 countries learning about our African history. And 80, I say 18, I meant to say 80 museums as well. And he's just an incredible man that, unfortunately, having gone to Egypt about 40 times, 3 years ago he was taking a group to Egypt, and unfortunately he died in Egypt. So that's kind of some of the things I've done. I've also talk about Philadelphia, which is where I have lived. Did a documentary on Wilson Good, first black mayor in Philadelphia. So that's been on the air as well. So I've done a few things.
Okay. I want to get to Wilson Good and Philly definitely. But I want to ask you this while it's on my mind. What drove you to want to tell the stories of people of color well outside of America? Egypt, Ghana, Italy, France.
I think it's very important for our people to know where we came from, why we came from, and who we are today. So that was my reason for doing that. I met a gentleman by the name of Dr. A. Robinson Jr. in 1989, and he convinced me that it's important to teach our people who we are. So in going to those countries, Egypt, Ghana, particularly those two, I thought it was important to let our people know where they came from before they were captured and pulled over here and became slaves. Ghana is just an incredible place. I recommend people to go there to learn more about their history. I'll be going back to Ghana for my 5th time in October. I'm doing a serious project called The Journey, which is really about our people before they were taken from Africa and brought here. Then they were taken. We're going to actually go down the whole path that our people took to get into the dungeons, and then onto a boat and come here before slavery. So it's just important that our young people know that they're very special. One of the historians that I work with, he has a slogan: "We are the children of those people who chose to survive." Meaning that in coming over here, a lot of people jumped overboard because they couldn't stand it. But so the people that stayed on the ships to get here, we are the children of those people. It's important to know that.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Light, powered by Atlantic City Focus, and we are here with filmmaker Bob Lott. What is your approach in covering? I'm assuming you're born and raised in Philadelphia, or you're a native Philadelphian. So, what is your approach in covering or doing a documentary about your hometown, and in particular, a figure who's been as well covered in the media as Wilson Good?
First of all, I was born and lived at 29th and Diamond.
You can't get no more Philly than that.
Okay.
That's more Philly than Will Smith.
And I went to Darwin's High School, which is a vocational school.
Okay.
And I went to a architectural drafting class in Darwin's for 3 years, 10, 11, and 12th grade. And I became an architect after that.
Okay.
But in 1981, I was playing with video and film, and people were seeing me, and some professional people said, "How do you know how to do all that?" So that started me to be in the professional world of producing video. I always wanted to do black stuff about us. When you talk about Philadelphia, the only project I've ever done, because I was raised in Philly when they had gangs in every 3 blocks. You didn't walk 3 blocks unless you know how to run. But Wilson Good was a very special man. It's unfortunate about the way his life ended as it relates to the move situation, which he had nothing to do about, by the way. He didn't create that. He didn't make that happen. But he was the best mayor up until now that Philadelphia had. He did a lot of things, a lot. So the documentary I did about him talks about all those great things he did before the move situation. So it's worth seeing.
Now, I understand you also were a pioneer as far as getting music videos played on television outside of MTV, or maybe even before MTV.
Well, I got involved in the music industry starting around 1979.
Okay.
I met a lot of people. I met Kenny Gamble, Teddy Pendergrass, and in 1981, I think it was MTV came out, and this thing called music videos. Right. This thing called music videos. They were starting to come out very alive, but there weren't that many black music videos. Why? Because the record company said there's no place to put them. MTV will put anything black on their line. BET, even though they were black, they just weren't into black music videos. So I decided to try to find a way to get the record companies to produce more black music videos. So me and my then writing partner created a pilot show. We actually hosted the show. His name was Gavin, my name's Lott. So we called it the Gavin and Lott Show. We actually hosted it. I went around the country to all the TV stations in all the major cities, convincing them, or at least attempting to convince them, to start airing that show so people could see these black music videos. We got 55 cities across the country. The record companies then said, "Oh my God, we got a place to put black music videos," so they start producing more black music videos. So that's a piece of history that's real as it can get.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, the great Bob Lott. How can people get in contact with you, or do you want people to get in contact with you? But if somebody has a story to tell, or think they may have a story that's worth documenting, how can they get in contact with you?
I'd rather have an email.
Okay.
It's Bob Lott at tmgifilms.com. I'll spell it. BOBLOTT at TMGI, and the word films with an S. tmgifilms.com.
Okay.
Bob Lott.
Is that also a website, or?
The website is the same name,
Okay.
tmgifilms.com. lottfilms.com.
Okay.
And what you're going to see on that when you go on there, you're going to be on that website for quite a few hours. I've done
Okay.
a lot of work over these last 45 years. I've met a lot of recording artists, worked with them, several actors and actresses like John Amos, Felicia Rashad, Isaac Hayes, and I was just so close. And it goes on, and the list goes on.
All right.
There's a lot of things to learn about Bob Lott.
Is there anything you'd like to add before I let you go?
I don't know that there's ain't much of anything else I could say. It's just thank you, and I want to thank you very much for doing this interview. I don't have a big head, so people don't know that I exist. But it's nice to have some people know that I exist.
I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I don't know that my platform, or I'm not conceited enough to think that my platform is going to shake the world. What I hope it does is that we bring people like you to bear on someone to be inspired. You know, there'll be somebody who will see this and will say, well, if Bob Lott can pick up a camera and document things that happened at, you said 24 and Diamond?
29th and that.
29th and Diamond, then, you know, what's happening outside my stoop, or the choir that's been performing for 30 years at my church is worth documenting, or the teacher who's run the after-school program out of their own pocket for the past 10 years is worth documenting, or the young lady who is making designer handbags, you know, her story is worth telling. So that's what I hope happens. And of course, I hope people go to your website and fill a not robbery to support you in any way they know how to. But I believe that what I'm doing will hopefully bring Bob Lott to somebody who didn't know about Bob Lott, and they can start on a journey to being the next Bob Lott, but more importantly, the first whomever.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.